to authorize an independent investigation so that all the facts could be uncovered in an objective and accurate manner. On one of the issues in which on the one issue of the manner in which Mr. Manis returned to the facility, the information I received was not accurate. However, the county is using that unremarkable fact that Mr. Manis could walk while suffering from an asthma attack to try to defend its employees' inexcusable failure to call 911 for over 1/2 an hour after Mr. Manis's attack began. At the very beginning, I spoke out about the way the county was treating this family. As you know, the county executive's office did not know about this incident until nearly a week later, when I wrote to them and demanded an independent investigation. Even at that point, up through this moment, no one on behalf of the county has reached out to either of these women about what has happened to their beloved Felix. Rather than provide policies related to medical care for inmates to the Manis family as they requested, the county executive's office released them to the media. We also requested the videotape, and again, rather than providing it to the Manis family, it was provided to the media first. My criticism is not of the media. They have an obligation, first and foremost, to the public to find out facts and to report on them. Our problem is with the county executive and her administration, who has and continues to disrespect this family by refusing to communicate with them on anything. The reason the county did not release any information until public outcry and your pressure as members of the media was because the video released shows its employees' deliberate indifference was worse than we had understood. Our most updated timeline of events is as follows. At 4:15, the driver arrived at the Erie Hunt and Saddle Club. 4:46, Mr. Manis walks into the correctional facility in a distressed condition, immediately has his hands on his knees, and within a minute or so, he is on the ground. 4:51, after being on his knees and his bottom for over 4 minutes, he is finally assisted into a holding cell by another correction officer, not the driver who had been told over 40 minutes earlier of Mr. Manis's serious medical condition. Emergency personnel arrived at 5:05, and Mr. Manis left the facility at 5:07, nearly 50 minutes after this tragedy began. At this time, both Brianna and Amanda, who have viewed the videotape, would like to comment. We're going to begin with Amanda, and then Brianna's going to speak, and then at the end, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
So the video footage that I've seen is without the guards blurred, so I can see more than what everybody else can see when they watch the TV. The guard that transported Felix clearly shows that he does not care at all about Felix's asthma attack. He walks right past Felix as Felix is on the floor in the lobby, and he goes back into the station where the other guard is at. The female guard is processing people in. This guard is still not alerting the other guard that Felix is having a hard time breathing. It wasn't until some of the other inmates that were in there with Felix brought up his bag of belongings because he could not remember his own locker code to even get into his locker. Then this is a locker that he uses multiple times a day to put his stuff in. Then the other guard notices Felix on the ground, and she goes to help. This guard that transported him is still in the guard station and still not helping. If I was to be walking down the street and I seen somebody, if they fell or if they were struggling to breathe, I couldn't even have done that to a stranger. I don't understand how the guards, how is he still working? And you can clearly see in the video that he had no concern for what was going on with Felix. That's all.
I seen the video as well, unblurred. You see my dad arrive at 4:46 and his shoulders are as high as he can have them, that you can tell he's in distress. The guard that brought him back, that my dad notified 30 minutes prior to arriving, walks right in, and he goes, like she said, he goes into the office and he doesn't seem concerned much at all. You don't know what's said on the video, but his actions speak a lot of words. He just walks in, and then about 2 minutes into the video, I don't even think he's there anymore. The lady did try to jump into action and get help. We don't know what the 911 call reported, but I'm glad somebody did eventually call. I just don't understand why the guards' faces were blurred out in the video to protect them, because they didn't protect my dad at all, and his face wasn't blurred. I had to see the clean cut version. I think everybody should. I'm just hurt that the county hasn't reached out personally to us at all through this whole thing at all. They have no issue contacting like the media and letting them know. I think that they should not have a problem with speaking to us. I shouldn't call them. I shouldn't be bothering them. I'm disgusted in how my dad already asked 30 minutes prior to coming back to the center for help, and the CO just doesn't care. He just walks past. It's hard to watch. I watched it a few times, and I just don't understand how my dad made it. By the time he made it to Hammond, he left at 5:07 off of their property. By the time he arrived at Hammond, he was combative, he was delirious, and by the time he got a room at Hammond, he was already placed on life support. If this was not an emergency, he wouldn't have been brain dead by the time he arrived to the hospital. If he said that he needed help at this point, an hour before he makes it to Hammond, if he would have gotten help, he wouldn't have had a lack of oxygen at all. So for that man to walk in and walk past my dad like he wasn't there, like he didn't know he already asked for help, it's just absurd to me. Like, something has to be done about this.
That's all we have, unless there's questions.
You said that your timeline says at 4:15 the driver arrived at the Hunt Saddle Club. Can you specify how you know that?
Yes, that's what I was told by people that were picked up.
And you mentioned that the fact just about how Felix got into the work release center, the facts were a little fuzzy there. Do you still feel confident in the remainder of the facts that you stated in your letter, and why?
Oh yes, because the central premise of the letter is that Felix Manus had a serious medical condition that required immediate medical attention, which he was wrongfully denied. That is a fact. That will not change. He was driven for a half hour. In that half hour, he could have already been in the custody of emergency medical trained personnel to open up his airway, and he would be alive today. As I said from the very beginning, this is the failure of a person to call 911, for a medical emergency. That's not complex medicine. Second, what I didn't know before we got the tapes is the fact that this guard walked right by him as he was leaning over and then eventually on the floor. And when you see the unblurred out videotape, it's pretty clear that this guard looks at it a couple of times while he is on the floor. And he does nothing. He does nothing. Luckily, there was another female guard there that when she saw it, she immediately jumped into action. It is inexcusable for someone who is told that someone is having a difficult time breathing not to get them immediate medical attention. And then, if the answer was, we have to take you back to the center, why was an ambulance not there waiting? We now know that it doesn't appear, and we have not been able to confirm this yet, but it appears as though the call to 911 was not made for several minutes after he got back and was on the floor and then moved into a holding cell because everybody knew he was in great physical distress. If you take the videotape and share it with a critical care pulmonologist, they will tell you that Mr. Manis's physical characteristics is typical of somebody who is suffering an asthma attack. Their body stiffens up. That's because of a lack of oxygen. They are not able to think clearly. They are not able to breathe. And a lot of people may say, well, why doesn't it look like he's breathing harder? He can't. His airways are shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. There's less air to the brain. That's what kills people. Remember, people walk into emergency rooms. They walk into emergency rooms every day with heart attacks, strokes, appendicitis, a whole lot of other physical conditions. So this idea that, well, he could walk, that's a red herring. That is a complete red herring. That's why I wanted to address it today. Acknowledge that what I wrote at that time was not accurate. It was the best information I had. And quite frankly, if the county had provided me any information up to this point, other than what I've gotten through right to know request after the media has gotten them, they could have cleared up all this confusion. That's another sign of disrespect to this family, playing this cat and mouse game. I will make one other point. They made a great deal in their news conference about how a nurse had been consulted. But everybody should realize that Wexford Health Sources, who is contracted to provide medical care to the prison, by its contract, does not provide medical services to the pre-release center. And I will be happy to provide you copies of that document, but that's a fact. I think every citizen is entitled to transparency and honesty from their government, and we have not gotten that, and that's a sign of disrespect to this family and for their loss.
So the letter you wrote on the 4th of June, I think everyone then assumed that an ambulance would be waiting, and you had just mentioned that.
Yes.
But when Felix was on the floor by the lockers,
Yes.
no ambulance was called yet at that time.
No, not at that time. There was no ambulance called at that time, and we're not sure, but I think that it wasn't called for several minutes after that CO picked him up off of the ground. It's not clear in the video who she calls, but she makes 2 phone calls. And I'm thinking 911 was the last one because she didn't get back on the phone and the ambulance arrived a little while later. So when he was on the lockers, no. There was no ambulance called. There was none waiting for him like there should have been.
How many people, I've seen the video, but how many people do you think saw him laying there?
I think, I want to say maybe 4 or 5. The inmates that arrived with him, their faces are blurred, but you can see the concern. They're hovering over him here and there. They're trying to make sure he gets all his stuff. together. Then the one inmate comes to the desk, and that's when the woman CO notices my dad. I don't think she noticed, or my understanding, like what I've seen, I don't think she even knew that he was in that state at that point until she seen him laying there. I think just her and the inmates were the most concerned ones, not this man CO that my dad asked for help from.
John, have you reached out to the county to see about a meeting for the family?
No, I don't think, they know who I am, they know where I am, and I mean, I think that's kind of a fruitless exercise at this point. I mean, it's, if there's any confusion, I'm John Mizner at 311 West 6th Street, 454-3889. jfm@miznerfirm.com.
And so we know that there were 2 corrections officers who there was disciplinary taken against. We don't know exactly what it was. Is it your understanding that it's that man and woman CO that you've been referencing?
I do not believe it's the woman. I believe it's the one gentleman that was the driver and the person that he called back to and spoke to, but I do not believe, or have no reason to believe, that it was that woman. That woman acted, in my opinion, appropriately once she became aware of the situation, which is not what I can say for the other people involved.
And is that just an assumption based on your understanding of the situation?
Yes, that's correct. That is correct.
These things you bring up, are they worthy of a civil suit? You're still waiting for the autopsy report.
We're waiting for the autopsy report because any lawsuit has 2 elements to it. You must show that someone's responsible for conduct and that conduct has caused harm. And we think the most prudent way is to wait for the autopsy report. We are gathering all the medical records, and we have not seen anything yet that suggests to us that the lack of oxygen as a result of providing him medical care is the cause of his death. We're not the coroner. I'm not a pathologist, but we have our own medical team assembled, and I have a high degree of respect for Dr. Eric Vey, our pathologist, and out of respect for him, I think we should wait for his report. Thank you. If anybody would like the copy of the contract, we would be happy to provide that.
I'll take that. Thank you.
Okay?
And is there any way, just for clarification purposes, we could have everyone say and spell their first and last name and
Sure.
go over their relationships, if you would? Sorry, do you want me to get that?
It's fine, it'll be fine, yeah.
Listen, you guys should think I'm having a stroke or something.
Amanda Tuholski, AmandaTucholski. I was Felix's girlfriend for almost 12 years.
And the mother of his children.
And we have, 3 kids together.
I'm Brianna Manus, BRYHANNAMANUS. I'm his oldest child of 7.
Anything else?
Anything else?
Thank you very much for coming. Does anybody want a copy of these remarks just so you don't have to worry about your...
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was